I forget what I was reading about, like, why journalism is dying, because a lot of these news sources are not creating their own stories.
No.
It's regurgitated. They're all sharing the same stories, and they're only sharing what their viewership wants to see. So you have something like Fox News or CNN, they're going to confirm your bias.
Every
because,
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they know that this is how you feel,
Yep.
and you will watch us because we're basically justifying your opinion.
Dude, that's that's like nail on the head.
Yeah, and that's
call
crazy
it
to me.
programming for a reason.
Yeah.
It's constant manipulation and artificial construction of people's opinions.
Yeah.
Like, think about how many times they've, even just throughout the years that we've been alive, like, I've never really paid as much attention to the media until maybe like 24, when I was 24 years old.
Same.
And I'm like, huh. And it's like, it's even and that's only been like 4 years for me, maybe since my earlier 20s.
Yeah.
But I feel like just like the racism thing alone, it seems like they keep recreating it, and they cause this black and white friction.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many times are you gonna divide people racially, religiously, politically? It's like everybody needs to have a side.
Yeah.
And they paint it so that there's only two sides.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest issue, is why we can't progress. I'm like, the way that I feel is I understand that racism as an institution is something that exists, and it's really something that has foundationally built this country. Like,
Yeah.
You're not going to have the economic superpower that is America without a free labor system that built it up.
No.
So absolutely, and that only happened 100 years ago. Absolutely, we're not.
How was it, 100 or 200? That's, I wish I had the... But I know what you mean.
Something
the
like
point
that,
is
a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then, only like 50 years ago, did we get
There's
all this-
redlining.
Yeah.
That was a big part of it. That's almost what decided where a lot of people live today.
Yeah. And I even, like, in my city in Charlotte,
Yeah.
there was like the bus system in Charlotte did not desegregate. Like, the buses were still taking
No
certain
way.
areas of people to certain schools based on your identity.
Holy shit.
I think they ended it in 1994. So,
Fuck.
yeah. So I understand that, but my problem with how people are attacking the organization, and by organization I mean like the movement creation.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, ALCU.
Yeah, how do you feel about all that?
Yeah, so
Because that's a super controversial one.
yeah, the problem that I'm seeing is twofold. So one, I don't see any leaders.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody directing the movement.
Leaders how?
Like, name the top person in the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's an organization, I think. That's
Yeah.
why, right?
So, but the problem with that is that if we don't have leadership, or just point people who are going to direct the movement towards a specific target, you have a bunch of angry people who are just yelling.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes it can even deter the main point, which
Correct.
is to get rid of oppression, and more fundamentally get rid of the police brutality.
Yeah.
And I'm not against police by any means, but I am against police brutality. I think everybody is against police brutality. I don't think
Yeah.
there's a single person who's like, police
Yeah.
brutality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, who is like, just kill them all? Like,
Right.
who's wanted? Like, it sucks being pulled over. I don't care who you are. I hate that shit.
Yeah. And so my thing is, like, if the leadership is absent, then there are no targets. So you have these things like,
forget that.
I'm sorry,
It's okay.
these things like defund the police or abolish the police,
Right.
which to me is not, it's not a specific goal. That's not, you're not changing anything in the system. You have now,
It's like you're being controversial on purpose.
you've taken your messaging and made it way too broad, so that the only outcome that you have is mass resistance.
Dude, that's such a freaking good point. Because, dude, that's exactly what I've been thinking. I was saying, if these movements really wanted progress, they wouldn't name them controversial names. Because fundamentally, the incentive and the purpose of them is really good.
Yeah.
But they have these names where, if you don't want to look into it, which by the name and the headline and the click alone, would be so dismissive right away. Like no one's like some people might look into the defund the police, but most of it seems to be just for attention.
Yeah.
And that tension can bring a lot of dismissiveness because obviously fundamentally what we really want is reform of the police.
Yeah.
Which would be a fantastic name for such a movement because the point is we need to, you know, start from somewhere within that association, somewhere within the function and the service of the police and find ways to either train them better, hire them better, keep them training,
absolutely,
something like that. And then there's a lot of really great points in relocating finances to different departments within the community to lower crime.
And I think that is something that, you know, there are still going to be people who disagree with that, but there are going to be less people.
Right.
And if they can't back up their argument, then they sound illogical.
So instead of a 50-50, it's like an 80-20.
Right.
Like, I feel the same way.
Yeah,
I feel the exact same way. I'm like, dude, these are all great things, but if you're looking at the way people are presenting them and talking about them, it doesn't leave much room for somebody who might be opposed naturally to it to go, you know what, that might be not a bad idea.
Correct. Yeah.
Like, who wouldn't want cops to be better trained?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who wouldn't want a better hiring process, for more rigorous hiring process for cops?
Yeah, it should be hard.
Annual training.
Can I swear on this podcast?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, it should be hard as shit to become a police officer. It's such an important
job.
And you have not only your own life, but your brothers in arms. You have their lives in your hands, and then you have the people that you're serving's lives in your hands.
Yeah.
It should be one of the hardest jobs to acquire. And I think that should be the target of these movements is like, let's make the training really, really, really good. And let's make the vetting process really, really, really hard. I can speak to like the people who are angry about, you know, some police officers who get power and they immediately become corrupted by it. In my high school, I think, in North Carolina.
Power's tough. It's a great job for a robot.
For sure.
I keep saying that. I go, I know everybody doesn't want AI, but I would like, hey, you know what?
Seriously, you have to be emotionless and you have to have a really, really strong moral grounding. Like,
big time.
Opinions don't have a place in it.
No.
Like, there should be right and wrong, and that's what you should be enforcing.
You got to leave the rest of your life behind you when you're doing that job.
Like, my high school had a 45% dropout rate. It was
really?
not, yeah.
Where was your high school?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, shit.
Monroe, North Carolina.
Did you, grow up in the city?
No, so this was like, it's probably 25 minutes outside of Charlotte in Monroe, so it's rural. But I can think about a lot of people either didn't graduate or they just graduated, and maybe they didn't really go on to do anything else. Mm-hmm. But I can think about the 5, 6, 7 people in my grade who, like, everybody that I know, if I were to ask them, like, this kid was an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't treat anybody good.
Yeah.
Maybe he graduated high school and he didn't have a lot of options. So what did he do? He became a police officer.
No fucking way. Are you serious?
And a lot of them do, is they go into law enforcement. You know, they don't go into something like firefighting. It's hard to become a firefighter.
Right.
Like, you have to...
Isn't that funny, dude?
Yeah.
Is it harder to become a firefighter
you
than a cop, you think?
In order to be considered...
Yeah.
You probably have to get your EMT certification.
That's true. Because you do, yeah.
If not, become a paramedic. Mm-hmm. You know, you take the tests, you take the written tests, you take the physical aptitude tests, and then there's Fire Academy. But just like the vetting process, if you pass those two things, you go onto a list depending on the town that you apply for.
Right.
And the list is huge because they have
so many people,
a huge amount of applicants every year.
Yeah.
And in order to pick the cream of the crop, like, it's whether or not you have an associate's or a bachelor of science in fire science.
Yeah.
Are you an EMT?
For fire department.
Yeah. Are you an EMT? Do you have experience being an EMT?
Yeah.
Are you a paramedic? Do you have experience being a paramedic? Like, you have to put your time in before you can actually work in the fire department.
I had this conversation with Cameron Prosperi, and I was so it was based off of Joe Rogan's podcast with Jocko.
Yeah,
you know Jocko
I saw
Willink?
that one, yep.
It's a great podcast. Mm-hmm. And he made a really fucking good point in that how important or how great it would be if in the selection and hiring process of police officers it was required, like most jobs, a degree that you would have some type of like at least a purple belt, they said, in jiu-jitsu or something of a mixed martial art sort, because there's a lot of discipline. Never mind the skill of knowing or being a purple belt at the very least, which is a very honorable belt to have, because right after purple, I believe, it's like brown and then black. Yeah, I think somebody could correct me on that.
But there's a lot of mental discipline.
There's a lot of mental discipline in that, and your ability to disarm or de-escalate a situation is just that much better. Yeah. Versus somebody scrambling and then you because again, the moment you get punched in the face, you're acting off instinct. For sure. Again, I'm not going to say whether or not everything is race fueled, but you get punched in the face, you got a gun, and you're just we're just a monkey. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we're giving ourselves a little too much credit sometimes. Sure. Yeah. We're just a monkey, really, on a planet, and we're kind of figuring it out, but we can't really get off this planet yet. So it's like, how can you gauge really how intelligent we are? Yeah. So at some point, you're gonna wonder, if a monkey gets punched in the face and he's got a device to just end lives. He pulls that out like fucking Clint Eastwood and just starts blasting. Like, no, I feel that. I mean, we're laughing here, but that's the truth. Yeah, that's the fucking truth. Because really, we're all motivated by the exact same things, and we're all stimulated and anxiety driven by the same things. All of a sudden, the person you're trying to detain scrambles out, knocks you in the face, punches somebody else. It's like, yeah, you got to do something. You got to do something, and some people are not prepared to take on that mental strain. And so we just need to make sure that they are. But yeah, as far as my opinion towards whether to abolish the police or defend the police, I just for that very reason, I just don't trust that humanity is evolved enough to leave it to somebody in the community to help me enforce. I don't trust the person next to me. Like, you don't know who they are. This world is so crazy right now. I don't want to live in a world without somebody between me and them. Talk about how privileged you have to be to go, I don't need the police. Yeah. Yeah, you don't, but you ever been to the Bronx? Yeah. You're pretty much crazy. Relying on them, not, to be able to call somebody. Because I remember it was a TikTok, so again, go about this as you will. And this guy was going around interviewing people. He went to some suburb. Hey, how you feel about, and the privileged kids there are like, yeah, defund the police, get rid of them. And then he went to the inner city and said, what do you feel about defunding or abolishing the police? What are you, crazy? That's literally what everybody said. Are you out of your goddamn mind? What are you going to do without the cops?